Hi guys, I hope you're doing well. So I am not normally the type to sit there and say, oh, I believe in karma or coincidences or anything like that. But today I will definitely say was like a come on moment. And so the reason is because we had an emergency room visit with Thomas. And almost a year to the day, so last year in a week, so almost the same day, or the same date, we took Thomas to the emergency room last year because he got bit by one of the dogs at my parents' house while he was swinging. Or at least that's what we think happened. Either bit or clawed or something. Anyways, so he had to get stitches a year ago for that. And then today, Dan was taking me and a friend to run in and get something from Starbucks because we had a gift card. And I get a text from our babysitter that, ma'am, I'm so sorry, I'm not for sure what happened, but Thomas is bleeding. Can you come home? And so my friend and I got out of the car because we didn't know if it was a big deal or not. And I said, let us out, and Dan, you go back home and see. Sorry, there's something in my teeth. Anyway, you go back home and see what's going on. And so he gets home, and Thomas we think he jumped off the toilet because he was brushing his teeth, jumped off the toilet and hit his head on the way down on the sink, or was in the sink and jumped down and hit his head on the floor brushing his teeth. He's 4 years old, so we're not constantly following him around. He's usually pretty good, and so we're not for sure exactly what happened, but I feel so bad for the babysitter because she was in the other room working on something else and wasn't in the exact room he was. So then she feels super guilty, and it's you know what? 4-year-old boys will be 4-year-old boys. It's totally okay. This is totally on him. And so we didn't know for sure, do we take him to the hospital, to the emergency room, do we not? And so I told Dan, I said, why don't you, go home, look it over, get it all cleaned out, and you can make the decision while you're home, is this something where we need to go to the emergency room, or is it no big deal, or whatever. And so he came to pick up my friend and I, and Thomas was in the car, and he's like, I think it's deep enough that we should at least have it go cleaned out and looked at. And I said, okay. So we went and dropped off our friend at her house, and Dan and I headed to the emergency room. We went to the hospital that Thomas was born at. It's a really good hospital. They've been really good to us. I have spent many hours there, different doctor's appointments and things, and Thomas's doctor is there too. So, and we've tried to go to other hospitals for things here, but during this COVID thing, we're this one's just going to be easier to get into and easier to deal with. So Dan and I decided, since with the whole thing going on, the whole virus, they only let one person be with the patient. So I said, okay, this is one of our days that we are allowed out. Why don't, Dan, you go and get the groceries and get all the things we need, and I'll stay with Thomas, and you can come pick us up later. We didn't know if it would be, sorry, my nose is running, a quick time or if it would take a lot of time. We didn't know. And come to find out, it was a very long day. So we started this process around, I think, 11 o'clock. Or maybe a little bit earlier. I don't know, maybe it was 10:30. I don't know. So we started, and we're sitting there. Well, first got all the paperwork filled out. And we're sitting there, and they said, you'll see the doctor within the hour. Okay. So we're sitting there. It becomes almost an hour and a half. And so I sat there and said, excuse me, you said we were going to see the doctor. My son is only 4 years old, so he's really squirming, and are we going to be able to see the doctor soon, or, what's going on? And so the nurse told us to go grab lunch and to come back. And this is when I start calling Dan. So it's like, maybe he can grab us food or whatever. Well, he was in the mall trying to get the groceries and things. Sorry, I blow my nose. Just a second. It's running. So he was in the mall trying to get groceries, and so I guess there wasn't good reception. So I call, and it didn't work out. And so I was like, okay, we got to figure something out. Come to find out, there's a KFC that's pretty close to the hospital. So Thomas and I walk over to the KFC, and I couldn't remember, does KFC have fries? Do they not? And so I walked in at first thinking, oh, they don't, and then we walked out. I was like, no, this is the only thing I see really close by that I know he'll like. So I walked in and said, can I have a small fry and a small Coke? Well, they didn't have Coke, but they did have fries. And so we got one small fry, one small tea, walked back to the hospital, sat outside because I was like, I don't know if they're allowing food inside, I don't know. So we finished the fries, and we're working on finishing the tea, and then they call Thomas in. And at this point, he has taken off his mask completely, and so I'm like, oh, I gotta get his mask on. So then we go, and they let us back, and we sit at this, desk for a little bit. Got to meet the doctor. She looks at his head and is like, oh yeah, we need to do stitches. And then it takes them about a half hour to get everything prepped. And, but the stitches process, it was just 3 stitches. It was really quick, really easy. They, laid him down on a gurney and wrapped him up in a blanket, like a cocoon. They cocooned him so he couldn't, hit him or kick him or whatever. And he was really brave. I mean, he cried a little bit, but they numbed it, and he is not his mama. I think he gets a lot of that from his dad, that he was really brave through it and just did an awesome job. And I did not pass out during the process. There was a couple of times where I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, look away. But they were so sweet, got it done. And then they got us out of the main emergency room part really easily, really quickly. But then it took a while to pay, because they give you this paper, you take this paper to this, the paper where they write up your bill, and then you go to this next section to pay. And then after you go and pay, you have to go back to the place where they wrote up the bill, and then they sign off on the fact that you paid it, and then they let you out. Which, as much as that took time, I'm glad that they did that after the fact, because normally they sit there and say, okay, you're going to have this done. And so you have to go and you have to pay for most of it, and then you go back and they have it done, and then you go back and pay for it again. And so there was a lot of waiting. Thomas was an okay waiter. Like, I turned on my, what is it called? My data, my phone, and he watched videos. There was one time where we were, like, sitting in the waiting room, and the next thing I know, he, like, runs to the CR for the fact that he could run to the CR, and he found out that there was a blow dryer he put his hands under. And then we get back to where, like, the emergency room where they do the stuff, and we're sitting there, and then at one point he ran out, and I had to grab him and take him back. And so, was he perfect? No. But with the situation and everything, I think he handled it as best as Thomas would handle it. I'm thankful for the people that were there and that they handled the things the way they did, and I'm glad that they handled it in a way where I didn't have to hold him down. And yeah, they made it easier, because you just never know how your child's gonna react, and Dan's a lot stronger than I am, and so I was very proud of myself of just how I handled it and everything. But that is the adventure that we have had for today, that we do not want to have again. Hopefully next year we will not have an emergency room visit. I was thinking back, and I almost made a post of, yay, we've made it a whole year without being in an emergency room. And then I forgot there was a time where I had to take one of the twins in for a spot by her ear. And that was like a minor surgery deal and had a lot involved in it. But I think I'm getting a little bit better at this parenting thing and just dealing with the things, but it's still not fun. So I am going to post a picture of Thomas and his emergency room visit last year, and Thomas and his emergency room visit this year at the end of this video. So hope you liked this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time. Bye. God bless.